Well, good morning, I think, and welcome to another episode of Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at the Get Go Cafe and Market, where for a limited time
you can get the Substravaganza, which is a 7-inch sub for $4.99.
That's a pretty good deal. Let's talk about something that's a whole lot less exciting than that, and that's the Steelers' 26-14 loss to the Ravens, and a lot of people are going to be pointing the finger squarely at Ben Roethlisberger. That's been your focus. How big of a factor was he in this?
Yeah, I mean, he pointed the finger squarely at himself. He said, I wasn't good enough. Point the finger at me. And, we've seen this before.
He does that all the time.
He does this all the time.
But this time it was right.
This
time he was absolutely correct.
Was legit.
He was awful in the second half of this game. They couldn't get any traction on offense, and that puts too much pressure on a defense that, quite frankly, isn't meant
They're not equipped for this.
They're not equipped to be that kind of team.
No, they put themselves behind the chains how many times? I mean, we were talking about some of the third down conversions. They go just 2 of 12 today. I mean, they're at 3rd and 10. I couldn't tell you how many times. That's no way to win because they couldn't run the ball either because they're behind.
The thing that gets you about the third down conversions, they were literally decisive in this game, meaning in both directions, is that maybe half of those failed third down conversions. We'll have to wait for Carter's War Room for the real heavy breakdown on this. Maybe half of those were just bad passes.
Yep, I was talking to Ryan Switzer. He was one of the recipients of one of those bad passes. It was a simple screen pass.
He had to go backward?
Kind of got the second half kicked off with a bang when he throws the ball 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
For a 5-yard loss.
Yeah.
I know Switzer's a small guy, as you can tell here, but that's a pass that Ben Roethlisberger makes 99 out of 100 times. You don't expect him to miss there. You saw him not really in good with good chemistry yet with Antonio Brown. How many times have we been waiting that? This is 4 games. We haven't seen Antonio Brown be Antonio Brown.
Weird day for Ben. You mentioned, Dale, this defense is not equipped to make up for the shortcomings of the offense. But that's really what this game was about, isn't it?
It really was. And the Steelers' defense, I thought, for 3/4 of the game was okay. Okay. They were holding their own for the most part. Yes, the Ravens came out and got off to a quick start, but the offense helped with that too, with Vance McDonald getting the ball stolen away from him, giving them a short field. But they kind of stemmed the tide a little bit. They got some stops. They got a key fumble recovery. When it looked like the Ravens were going to go up 21-3, and then the offense storms back and gets them into it, and then does nothing in the second half to help.
Yeah. What did, other than Ben? What was there to dislike about the offense?
Again, James Conner. I mean, this is a guy. I wrote about him last week. Talking about how he's Le'Veon-like. This wasn't very Le'Veon-like.
So this is on you, basically.
I jinxed James Conner.
You built him up. He built him up.
But they can't really establish a run game when you're down so big so early. So they had to get away from it to get back into the game, and you're not going to build any kind of establish anything in the run game.
Is it on James, though? Or is it the line? I didn't see any push. I didn't see holes, Dale. Did you?
It's just the way they're opening these games. They haven't scored. They've gone 3 and out on every opening series of their games thus far this year. All four.
Wow.
They've also... Not only are they going 4 and out or 3 and out in the first series, they're doing it on the next series and even sometimes 3 series into the game.
It's taking too long.
It's taking too long. So, I realize a lot of offensive coordinators like to kind of feel things out a little bit, but it seems to me they're being a little bit too timid when they're coming out with their opening game plan.
Instead of just coming out and dictating what they want to do, what they should do.
Absolutely.
And you got to point the finger at the offensive coordinator, Randy Fichtner. Now,
Ben Roethlisberger.
Is it him or is it Ben Roethlisberger?
That's what I was getting to. That was what I was getting to. This is Ben Roethlisberger's offense. I mean, when he points the finger at himself, he's literally pointing the finger at himself because this is his offense.
Scraping hard for positives. You're going to say Bud. Bud Dupree had a decent game. I mean, a pass rush. He got something of a pass rush going.
A little bit of a pass rush there. Chris Boswell made all of his kicks.
Give me something good.
I was going to go with Chris Boswell, but then when you see Justin Tucker hit 48 and 49-yard bombs.
Justin Tucker's just boring.
He's another animal.
He's not even interesting. He doesn't care about closed end, open end, any end.
And I will say this. The penalties were way better this game. Way better. It was not an issue like it had been in previous games. And, oh, by the way, what the heck was the call on James Conner?
Yeah, I know. I mean, maybe that's another positive is that those refs are, on a bus headed to the airport.
Somewhere
maybe
else.
They won't come back, and they aren't here. I got another I'll throw in my own positive. Joe Hayden looks like a star right now.
Well, he always has been.
He has been, but that's different than what we saw when he came from Cleveland last year. He was coming off a couple of really rough, injury-racked years. This is mostly a healthy Joe Hayden, and he's just, his hand is on the football all the time.
Imagine what that score is if he doesn't have that pass break up in the end zone. That was a sure 6 right there.
Yeah,
that
sure
he gets
was.
a hand on.
Next up is I don't know, how different are the Atlanta Falcons from this Baltimore team we just saw?
It's the same thing week after week. I had that thought as I was sitting there watching the Bengals and Falcons play today, that every team that comes into that I've seen this year has 3 really good receivers and a running game and a quarterback that can
with
beat
an arm.
you. Yeah. And it's going to be that way the following week against Cincinnati. I know people are going to look and say, well, it's Cincinnati. They got 3 good receivers, a good running back, and a quarterback who can get them the football. This is just the way that it is. This is the way of the NFL right now. Going into this game tonight, there were already 12 teams that were over 30 points this week alone in the NFL. It's a scoring league, and the Steelers have to score points to keep up. They just have to.
Yeah, Atlanta's going to present a challenge like that for the defense, but what about in the other direction here? Because the fact is the Steelers faced a Baltimore defense that was banged up. This wasn't even
no Jimmy Smith.
This wasn't even their best. This wasn't their best up front. And yet there was just nothing there. What do they need to do to get going against Atlanta?
Going up against Julio Jones, I figured this has got to be the game where Antonio Brown finally has that breakout game, because that's the guy he's always kind of been compared to as being, the best receiver in the game.
This was supposed to be that game.
I was going to say, I heard he can't throw
Last
himself
week was
the
supposed
ball.
to be that game.
I mean,
it's really befuddling with this team right now. And I know people have taken umbrage when I said on our live feed, fire everybody. But that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It's a moot point.
They need to have a different solution to this whole thing, and that's not it, because the Steelers just don't do that. And by the way, no NFL team really does, because if you fire somebody, you're just bringing somebody else up off the staff.
No,
so
we kind of challenge each other as a staff to, look, let's not just come up with solutions just to make everybody happy and get clickbait. Let's come up with stuff that actually applies. Because if we can talk about changing the head coach and everyone's going to go, yay, way to go,
but
great article.
But it's not going to happen.
But it's not going to happen. I mean, we're talking about a half century of precedent here.
No, obviously the coaching Mike Tomlin is fine. That's not going to happen. I mean, there's things, that defense is what it is. It's going to have problems. And if they give up 26 points, most games you're going to take that. The problem tonight, I think, was the offense, and I put it squarely on them.
But just to take the reader's side here for a second, or at least the majority of them, what will it take for Keith Butler specifically to be in trouble? Because they have changed coordinators.
Hey, just because I say that you're not going to fire him now doesn't mean that he's not in trouble.
Right.
I'm just saying they're
not getting better, Dale. That's the problem.
They're not going to make a move now. It'd be very un-Steeler-like. At the end of the season, yes, maybe that could happen. It probably should have happened last year, but it didn't.
Take out both coordinators.
Yeah.